Good day everyone. I am Victor, the moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone for today's webinar, which is the Fair Housing Act applies to condominium, cooperative and homeowners association. I would now like to introduce our presenter for today, Paul Flogstad. Paul has been involved in real estate industry for past 38 years. He specializes in fair housing issues. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Paul.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about condominiums and cooperatives and the responsibilities and what goes along with a board member, what their responsibilities and whatever are. And so we'll just get started by uh, trying to educate everybody about the fair housing laws and highlight issues that commonly come up in condominium management type situations. It is trying to serve as a guide for associations so that you can stop and consider the impact of certain decisions in light of fair housing laws and ask more questions when appropriate. Once informed and aware, you can better comply with fair housing laws. So we have 7 federal protected classes. They are race, color, national origin, familial status, or families with children, religion, sex, and disability. And these are the 7 federal protected classes. Now, in your area, there may be additional protected classes. Incidents of discrimination, basic protected classes, race is the first one, and discrimination, race is the second highest protected class. The next one is color, things that are confused with race, but there's many shades of color within each race. The next one would be national origin, and this has to do with your ancestry or where you came from, your birthplace or your culture. There's also, you can get interpreters, examples of national origin. Then the next one would be familial status or families with children. And this is where the home has the children under the age of 18. A pregnant woman is considered a family. It prohibits discrimination in housing against families with children under the age of 18. So you can't outright deny housing to families with children. The next protected class is religion. Overt discrimination against any members of any particular religion. Advertising that your community holds Bible studies on Tuesdays. Then there's the protected class of sex. This concerns sexual harassment, gender stereotyping. Biggest complaint is on the sex situation. There's 2 types of sexual harassment. The quid pro quo, the this for that. I'll give you new carpet if you have sex with me. The hostile environment, comments are made to women inappropriately. Disability means a mental or physical impairment substantially limiting at least one major life activity. And what is some major life activities? Pretty easy. Seeing, hearing, breathing, walking, talking, and the typical disabilities, cerebral palsy or multiple sclerosis, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, anything that may need a reasonable accommodation request because of that disability. Now, not all disabilities are visible. Many of the disabilities are a mental type of a disability. So those are there, and you can require your verification from a medical professional. Disability had the highest percentage of total complaints. What happens if you have a fair housing violation? The complaints, if you have a complaint filed against you, you'll be notified of the allegations. Federally, it's also the Department of Justice. So HUD takes Fair Housing Act, Americans with Disabilities, the Department of Justice. You can get actual damages to a tenant. Violations, fines up to $10,000. Federal Fair Housing Act, of course, was added, and it added familial status and handicap as protected classes. It applies to a wide variety of housing transactions, including rental, sales. Under the law, homeowners associations cannot take any adverse actions. It prohibits discrimination against families with children under the 18. Disability discrimination can also include an association's failure to make reasonable accommodations and reasonable modifications, requests for accommodations, with civil penalties ranging as high as $50,000 and violations. Lastly, zoning ordinances and homeowner homeowner association clauses often disallow commercial uses of properties in residential areas. Fair Housing Act's protections against discrimination on the basis of familial status. What is considered reasonable occupancy standard? What if there's no occupancy restrict? Property is not subject to a local or state code, a housing provider. Examples, no more than 3 persons shall be permanently occupy or reside in any of the units. Use of any recreational facilities in a condominium by children. Tenant selection process. In your tenant selection process, when you do your verifications. Now, there's also policies that you need to have at your property. Now we'll talk about accommodation with assistance animals. Do you need to get, or can you get verification? Now, there's 2 types of accommodation with animals, assistance animals. Service animals, DOJ says the service animal has to be a dog. Reasonable accommodation for assistance animals under the Fair Housing Act allow for reasonable accommodations for individuals with disabilities who use assistance animals. Assistance animals must be permitted if the individual has a disability. Oral requests are enough. I would, any animal that is necessary because of a disability, a service animal. Best practices, a request should be in writing, either by the resident or on-site staff. Verification should be sought only if the disability or disability-related need for the requested accommodation is not readily observable. On the verification form, is this person disabled? Does the person need an accommodation because of that disability, or what is the accommodation needed? There is no official registry of assistance animal. Now, there's no automatic restriction on species, breed, weight, or size of this animal. They're subject to usual customary pet rules, though, regarding behavior and hygiene. Owners should be not charged pet deposits. Cleaning and damage deposits come out of their regular. Avoid fair housing violations. Associations are responsible for statements. A disability, of course, is a physical or mental impairment. Request for a reasonable accommodation may be denied in providing the accommodation would impose the undue financial hardship or administrative burden. Housing provider refuses a requested accommodation because it is not reasonable. May the association ask for details that the person is disabled, of course. Familial status means the presence of children under the age of 18, includes pregnant women. Treat all applicants and residents alike, regardless of their protected classes. Establish the same terms and conditions for everybody. Establish written procedures for responding to requests. Regularly review the bylaws as well as other rules, policies, or procedures. Use occupancy restrictions not contain any unlawful preferences. Limits on the number of allowable occupants should be implemented with caution. Understand reasonable accommodations and modifications and develop an appropriate procedure. Again, there was necessary policies. But I think we've covered pretty much a lot of the issues that come up. Very good. Well, thank you for attending. The most important thing to remember in the condominium is the board of directors, and make sure that all the board of directors have fair housing training and that you abide by the fair housing rules in any of your decisions. Sometimes it gets heated with a tenant who says that they own their particular unit, but they're still under that association, and that gets to be the biggest problem. Is they, will try to hammer through to the board. Well, how come if I'm owning my unit and I paid $500,000 for my unit, I can't have a pet or something like this? So you need to write all of your policies and your pet rules and everything like that down so that it is definitely there. So you have something to go back to these people with and explain to them. I thank you for attending. Be sure you check their company's website here, and they have a lot of good courses on various topics, and maybe we'll meet again on another seminar. So thank you and have a good afternoon. Take care.
Thank you, Paul. So that does conclude the session for today, and thank you everyone for participating. You may all disconnect now and have a great day. Take care.